we've teased it enough. Let's get to the frickin' mugshot. Go ahead and put it up on the screen. This is what it looks like.
This is the high-res version, too.
Yes, everybody was waiting for this. I don't care whether you're like a resistance liberal or what. This was a real cultural moment here, Trump getting the mugshot. Now, he obviously has, this was not his first indictment, as you are well aware, but this was the first one where they did make him do the mugshot. It basically, the theory being, listen, we don't treat everybody the same, so if you're getting arrested here, you're coming in for the mugshot. For those of you who are just listening and not watching, I mean, you've probably seen it already by now, but this sort of like very angry, defiant stare, glare into the camera. He's wearing a blue suit, white shirt, red tie. He's got the sheriff's logo there up on the side. And as I said before, Saagar, this really turned into kind of a national Rorschach test. There was also a lot of discussion about like the height and weight that he self-reported.
Yes, there's a whole other conversation.
That was a whole, exactly. And there was a whole cultural moment of people sharing like, this is what 6'3", 215 actually looks like. You were talking about the things that really break through for normal voters.
Exactly.
This was what I was getting sent from people in my life who are not like big politicos. This was the conversation that they were kind of obsessed with, was looking at the mugshot and talking about Trump lying about his height and weight.
all my gym friends were doing the exact same thing, Krystal.
Really?
And I mean, I think it does, again, speak to the way that it has become like a pop culture signifier. And then, though, it comes back to, did this backfire? Like, was this a mistake? You know, if we were to consider that this is obviously political, you can talk about the legal merits and all of that, whatever you want. At least in the eyes of voters, it's clearly political. Even the ones who support it are like, yeah, it's political, and I support the indictment of Donald Trump. Well, then, did we help, or, you know, on their side, like if you're trying to think of, did they do Trump a favor? I mean, we shouldn't forget, the reason why people do mugshots is so that you have an official record of what they look like. Yeah. In case you don't have
everyone on the planet knows.
It's from the it's like a 1960s era relic, especially before the internet. Trump, I'm going to venture a guess, is probably the most photographic man ever in the history of the world. Obama actually was before him. Yeah. It's usually the presidents, you know, especially in the modern media age. So, like, did we really need one? And also, there's a reason why the feds didn't do a mugshot, and it's specifically in order to deny Trump the fundraising opportunity. And lo and behold, let's put this up there, he has raked in $7 million after the Georgia booking. Krystal, they are raising some $1 million per day online. They're selling signed copies of the mugshot. They're selling T-shirts of the mugshot. Now it's getting distributed like alongside rappers. Apparently, one of those guys, I forget, the one that Trump helped get out of prison. Lil Pump. I apologize. Lil Pump. In terms of the way I'm supposed to say it. So he's transcended, you know, into the meme universe with the mugshot, fully embracing it.
That ship had already sailed. The memification of Trump. Listen, I kind of appreciate the principle of this is the way we do things, and we are not granting you an exception. Because like you said, there's a lot of people that don't technically need a mugshot, where we've got photos of them. Like there's 1,000 photos of basically everybody online at this point. So I don't mind the principle of, this is how we do things. You're not going to be treated in a special way. So, you know, we're going to do the mugshot, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, his supporters are going to, you know, we're going to show you Jesse Waters over on Fox News, hilarious clip of him like fawning over this thing. People who hate Trump are going to have a totally different reaction. Every single one of his arrests, whether they had a mugshot or not, there was a huge fundraising bump for him in terms of the Republican primary. But I think in terms of the general electorate, you know, it's a very different picture. So for his Republican adversaries who want to be able to grab the spotlight, want to be able to have a different conversation, want to be able to move beyond Trump, I think these events are profoundly unhelpful for them, because one day after the debate, Trump is once again the center of the circus and driving all of the coverage and forcing everyone to basically come to his defense again on the Republican side. But I continue to think for the general election, I mean, you know, this is really serious. Like, this is going to be a problem for him. And I think Joe Biden is eminently beatable. Like, I saw this morning, his approval rating is like 31%. But guess what? Trump's approval rating is also 31%. And he could be, by that time, potentially facing prison time. now an outright majority of Americans believe he should suspend his campaign right now. So it's not like for getting back to the White House, he's in a strong position, but in terms of winning the Republican nomination, every one of these things is just helpful for him.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct. I mean, listen, with the general electorate, I never have any idea. It's one of those where ahead of the 2022 elections in the polling data, nobody was like, I'm really pissed off about January 6th and about Stop the Steal. But then obviously voters, when they went to the polls, were very upset about it, and they directly punished many of the candidates who most embraced it. At the same time, was that because of Stop the Steal? Was it because of Trump? And then abortion is laid out on top of all of this.
Right.
You know, the people who are pro-life will be like, no, it was all Trump. The people who are pro-choice are like, well, it was a lot abortion. I tend to fall much more on the side of abortion. Trump is actually the most moderate candidate in the entire GOP race on abortion, hilariously enough. And whenever you continue to think and you to look at how they are going to digest these overall indictments, the polling data that we have seems to indicate it's like, yeah, a simple majority of people seem to believe that these are just.
Yeah.
And but though, that doesn't mean that they may not vote for him. Maybe they will. I mean, some people say they won't. Then there was the whole silent Trump phenomenon that happened both in 2016 and 2020. So I just don't know. I do agree. I think it is, in general, a weakness. And for a lot of people who are listening to this, I know it can be difficult. If you listen to the show, you probably distrust institutions and the establishment. But I've said before, for a lot of normal people, it's like being arrested. They're like, oh my gosh, like, you must have done something wrong.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's like
when you get a mugshot. Yeah, exactly. They're like, wow, I mean, to be in 7 indictments or something like this, that's just crazy. I mean, that's one of those where, if you still have some faith in the system, and the justice system, and all of that, it can code very differently than people who are both his supporters and who are like pretty online and aware of some of the things going on in the justice system.
I think the abortion point is an interesting one to pick up on because the ad that the Biden campaign released after the debates was about abortion. It wasn't about January 6th. It wasn't about Trump arrest. It wasn't about any of that. It was, they took clips of Trump saying, I'm the one who overturned Roe versus Wade. And then they cut together some of the more extreme positions that were taken from GOP candidates on the debate stage, and that's what they released. And clearly they think that continues to be the most potent, evocative issue for them. And it's an interesting one because, if you poll voters, that's not going to be the top issue for the largest percentage of voters, but the people who are motivated by that are really motivated by it. And we, at this point, we've seen it in multiple elections, certainly that Wisconsin Supreme Court election. We had one recently in Ohio that was a big deal. We've actually got another one coming up in Pennsylvania that's going to be a big deal for another state Supreme Court seat. So they still feel like that, and the thing is, it's not like the Biden administration, they're not even promising to do anything on the issue. They're just promising to not make things worse and arguing that, the Republicans, whether it's Trump or anybody else, would make things worse. So I do think that's going to continue to be really central. You're referring to some of the numbers here about how Americans feel about all of these various charges. Let's put this up on the screen because this is kind of fascinating. On each of the different charges and indictments, a majority actually thinks that he is guilty. The numbers are extremely similar, no matter whether it is what I consider to be the weakest case, the falsifying business records case, or the sensitive documents case, or either of the election subversion, whether it's the Georgia or the federal one. You're basically sitting at 50% of the country who say, yes, he did it, he is guilty. And only about 25% in each of these instances who say, no, he's innocent. The rest are sort of like, I don't know. And so I feel like that 25% is the real, those are the real, hardcore, yes. Trump could never do anything wrong. And then, as we've been saying from the beginning, as much as it's important and we try our best here to dig into the merits and, have nuance and evaluate each claim and each indictment as they come, the reality is for most Americans, it's just a measure of how do I feel about Donald Trump?
Exactly right.
As all of our politics basically is just about how do you feel about Donald Trump?
It's so important for people to take that. So we spend a lot of time going through the various merits because we know it's going to eventually matter in a court of law. But in terms of how most people are going to digest it, they don't care. They don't care about Alvin Bragg and the DA. They don't care about the technicalities of Georgia election law. They don't care about January 6th and the free speech exception and all that. Those are for us and, the developments of which will be very important. Don't get me wrong in terms of whether he can, actually gets convicted, what the jury makeup is going to look like, what the judge says. says, the trial date, all of those are very important. But the straight up, like, is he bad or is he good? Yeah, I mean, that pretty much reflected. The number and the lack of change in between every single one of them just shows, like, you've got a lot of people in this country who hate Trump, and they just want to see him go away. I think they see the legal system as an avenue in order to make him go away. It's like a forcing mechanism.
Well, I think
so they're like, yeah, I support that.
I think they also genuinely see him as a criminal.
Absolutely.
And so I think there's also a little bit of like the, Al Capone getting him on tax fraud, tax cheating. It's like, whether it's for the thing that I really am mad at him about, or whether it's for a more superfluous issue, whatever it is, like, I think this guy is a criminal. I think he should face accountability, and, I'm not too troubled with the details. I just want to see him get his, basically. Yeah. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.